The murder that changed everything. The violence that filled Italy eventually reached Rita's own family. Because of an old feud, Paolo was ambushed and murdered. The entire village expected what always followed. Revenge. That was the custom. That was justice. But Rita had spent 18 years learning another way. Standing before those around her, she publicly forgave the men responsible for her husband's death. People were astonished. How could anyone forgive such evil? Yet Rita was simply living the example of Christ on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Luke 23:34. Her forgiveness stopped hatred from taking root in her own heart, but it could not yet stop the anger growing inside her children. A mother's impossible prayer. Rita and Paolo had two sons, traditionally identified as Giacomo Antonio and Paolo Maria. As they became young men, they swore to avenge their father's murder. They sharpened their weapons. They spoke openly of revenge. Rita pleaded with them, "My sons, do not answer blood with blood." She reminded them that revenge would only condemn another family to the same suffering they had endured. Every day she prayed. Every day she begged them to forgive. Yet their anger only grew stronger. Finally, Rita prayed one of the most heartbreaking prayers ever attributed to a saint. She asked God that, if her sons refused to abandon revenge, he would call them home before they committed mortal sin. Soon afterward, both young men became seriously ill. Before they died, they received the sacraments, forgave their enemies, and made peace with God. Only then did they enter eternity. Imagine the silence that filled Rita's home. Her husband was gone. Her children were gone. The house that had once echoed with voices now stood empty. She had lost everything the world could offer. Yet she refused to lose the one thing that mattered most, her faith. She clung to the promise of Scripture. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. Her childhood dream returns. Now completely alone, Rita returned to the dream she had carried since childhood. She knocked on the doors of the Augustinian convent in Cascia. She asked to become a nun. The answer was no. Not because she lacked holiness, but because the convent feared that accepting the widow of Paolo Mancini might reignite the family feud. For many people, rejection would have ended the dream. For Rita, it became another invitation to trust God. Following in the footsteps of her parents, she began working quietly to reconcile the feuding families. Slowly, hearts softened, old enemies embraced, peace replaced hatred. Only then did the convent open its doors. At about 36 years of age, Rita finally entered the Augustinian monastery. The dream that had waited for decades had finally come true. Life inside the convent. The monastery was simple: stone walls, small cells, long hours of silence, prayer before sunrise, manual labor throughout the day, meals eaten quietly while scripture was read aloud. It was exactly the life Rita had long desired. She embraced every task with joy. She cleaned, she cooked, she cared for sick sisters. She fasted. She spent long hours before the Blessed Sacrament. She sought no recognition. The sisters soon noticed something extraordinary. The more Rita suffered, the more peaceful she became. She truly lived the words of Saint Paul. "I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me.